Hello friends, very good morning to all of you. In continuation of my lectures on biochemistry for pharmacy students, so in this lecture we will see metabolism of individual amino acids among all. So these are the amino acids which we are going to study today: glutamic acid, glutamine, proline, arginine, histidine, aspartic acid and asparagine. So because all these amino acids and their metabolism are in one or the other way, they are related to each other. So comprehensive idea can be obtained by studying all their metabolism together. So let's go ahead and see what is there in their metabolism. So the first one is aspartic acid and asparagine. Now let's see their metabolic relations. Aspartic acid is this one. Asparagine is an amide of aspartic acid. So this is the relation between these two. Asparagine, with the help of enzyme asparaginase enzyme, which will deaminate, it will give us aspartic acid or aspartate compound. So this aspartate, upon deamination, means transamination type of reaction, with the help of the enzyme aspartate aminotransferase enzyme, this transfers amino group from here to alpha ketoglutarate to give glutamate, and in that process we are going to get oxaloacetate. So these two are very important reactions where this AST, alanine aspartic acid aminotransferase enzyme, is a very important enzyme in liver. So this one either can convert aspartate to oxaloacetate, or it can convert oxaloacetate to aspartate. Okay, so transamination is happening over here, but conversion of aspartate to asparagine is actually energy requiring step, where it consumes one ATP to give us this asparagine. Utilization of aspartate and asparagine. How it is utilized? Asparagine, by removing its amino group, okay, it gives us aspartate. Aspartate can take up amino group from glutamic acid to give us asparagine. This asparagine is a very important biomolecule for the transport of ammonia in CNS, and aspartate can give away its amino group by converting to fumarate. Fumarate will be converted to malate, malate will be converted to oxaloacetate, and oxaloacetate will enter into gluconeogenesis pathway. So in that way, both asparagine as well as aspartate are considered as glucogenic. Oxaloacetate can be converted back to aspartic acid by getting one amino group from glutamic acid. Okay, so this is it. This is again a transamination type of reaction. Okay, the ammonia that is obtained from aspartic acid is actually entering into urea cycle, and this amino group, one of the nitrogen in purine biosynthesis, is also obtained from aspartic acid. And this amino group is utilized for amination of inosine monophosphate to adenosine monophosphate. Aspartate, upon decarbonylation, it will become beta alanine. Okay, that will be incorporated into other biochemicals. So friends, this is the way how asparagine and aspartic acid are related to each other, and this is the way how their biochemical pathways are also interlinked. So friends, I hope you understood the biochemistry of aspartate and asparagine catabolic reactions. Now let's see the big part here: glutamic acid, glutamine, and their relationship to proline, arginine and histidine. So just like in case of aspartic acid and asparagine, here glutamic acid and glutamine. So in case of glutamic acid, we have carboxylic acid and carboxylic acid. It's an acidic amino acid, and this acid over here is amidated. Glutamine is actually an amide, CONH2. Okay, these are non-essential amino acids. These are glucogenic and they will give oxaloacetate. Okay, so this is the metabolic reaction. So glutamine, upon the action of glutaminase enzyme, it will hydrolyze. So thereby the amide bond is cleaved, COH group is produced. So the glutamate will be converted to oxaloacetate. Okay, so 2-ketoglutarate or alpha ketoglutarate. Glutamate will be converted to alpha ketoglutarate via transamination reaction. Over here, alanine aminotransferase enzyme will convert pyruvate to alanine while converting glutamate to its corresponding alpha ketoglutarate. These reactions are very, very important reactions in amino transfer mechanisms as well as alanine glucose cycle. That is what we have seen in amino acid metabolism, in gluconeogenesis also. So friends, this is the way. Here 2-ketoglutarate can be converted to glutamate by reversing this biochemical reaction, absolutely no problem. But glutamate cannot be easily converted to glutamine because this is an endergonic reaction where it consumes 1 ATP. So thereby it incorporates ammonium so that glutamine synthetase enzyme can convert glutamate to glutamine. Direct oxidative deamination of glutamate is possible via dehydrogenation. Okay, so this is what we have seen in the introductory lecture of amino acid metabolism, where some of the amino acids can undergo direct deamination reactions. So here what is happening in mitochondria, glutamate dehydrogenase enzyme take the help of either NAD plus or NADP plus as coenzyme and desaturates the CN bond of glutamic acid, and then it will be hydrolyzed to give us 2-ketoglutarate. So this is glutamate. The CN bond will undergo dehydrogenation first. So thereby C double bond N is formed. C double bond N is hydrolyzed to obtain C double bond O and NH3. Okay, this is the way how 2-ketoglutarate is obtained. So this equilibrium usually favors glutamate formation. Okay, because here NADPH, it is taking up NADPH is utilized so that you are getting glutamate, and then the glutamate, but it is pulled in the direction of deamination by continuous removal of ammonia, because the ammonia that we are getting over here, because all these are reversible reactions, but here ammonia is going to be eliminated as urea. So because there is significant elimination of ammonia is there, so that's why the biochemical pathway will prefer to move in this direction. Okay, so glutamate prefers to become 2-ketoglutarate. So this creates this kind of flow for the cycle. Then this 2-ketoglutarate will be utilized for transamination reactions of alpha amino acids. So alpha keto carboxylic acids are generated by abstracting amino group from the amino acid. So thereby glutamate is generated. So this is the way how it happens. Decarboxylation of glutamate, okay, so which is a very active process in brain. Here glutamate loses carboxylic acid group, that is over here alpha carboxylic acid. So thereby it gives us gamma amino butyric acid. Okay, the GABA is a very important neurochemical transmitter. Reversible reduction of glutamate. Now let's see this. Glutamate undergoes a specific biochemical reaction where the carboxylic group over here, at the gamma position over here, gets reduced to aldehyde. So this will act as an intermediate for because this is an aldehyde group, and here you can say an amine group is there. Let's say what happens if these two reacts with each other, it will form an amine. Okay, so if you ring close this reaction, let's see this one, because here 4 carbons are there, 1 2 3 4. Okay, we have COOH here, NH2, and here we have C double bond OH. Let's say if these two react with each other, what will happen? C double bond N, COOH, 1 2 3 4. Okay, CH. So what is this one? This is like a pyridine ring. Okay, so if you have one more double bond here, then it will become pyrrole. If you reduce this one, CH2NH, all these are CH2s and then COOH. What is this compound? This is nothing but proline. Okay, so this is the way how glutamate 5 semi-aldehyde can act as an intermediate for the biosynthesis of proline, or in another way, proline upon metabolism it gets degraded over here, so that it first gives glutamate 5 semi-aldehyde and then from here it gives glutamate. So this is the link between proline and glutamate. Friends, now let's see in detail about the comprehensive picture of utilization of glutamate and glutamine, how these two are related and then how their biochemistry is also related. Let's see that. Glutamate takes up an amino group and it can become glutamine. Okay, and this is a reversible biochemical reaction where glutamine can give away amino group to become glutamate. So this ammonia whatever is coming in and going out is actually happening via substrate level amination. Okay, it is not a transamination type of reaction. This is one of the amino acid where direct deamination is happening. It's hence glutamine is in one way helps as a transporter for ammonia to the liver and kidney. Okay, so this deamination can happen both in liver as well as kidney. So in the kidney, the ammonia that is obtained from glutamine metabolism helps in maintenance of the urine pH, and the ammonium ion is eliminated as such through urine. Further, the glutamine acts as a donor of amino group ammonia for the synthesis of carbamoyl phosphate. Carbamoyl phosphate synthesis you can see in urea cycle as well as in purine biosynthesis. Okay, next amino sugar biosynthesis that you will see in the antibiotic biosynthesis. Amino sugar biosynthesis also needs amino group supplied from glutamine. Now the glutamate gets will be converted to alpha ketoglutarate via transamination reaction. The amino group from glutamic acid will be shifted to oxaloacetate to give us alanine. Okay, cut. So glutamate undergoes transamination reaction to give alpha ketoglutarate via transaminase reaction. So here AST, aspartic acid amino transferase enzyme will be there, which can either take amino group from glutamic acid or it can give away. So it converts to oxaloacetate to aspartic acid. Okay, so this is the way. This is another very popular mechanism. Next, glutamic acid can be reduced to glutamate semialdehyde, which will be an input for biosynthesis of both proline as well as ornithine. In case of proline, just now we have seen how actually the ring closure reaction is happening, whereas in case of ornithine, the formyl group we have, okay, so that will become C double bond NH and then it will become NH2. Okay, so in this way semialdehyde can be converted either to proline by ring closure reaction or by amination, reductive amination type of reaction. It can give us ornithine. Glutamate upon decarbonylation, this is a very important biochemical, gamma aminobutyric acid, or in short form we call it as GABA. Okay, so this is a chloride ion channel opener, thereby it takes in chloride ions and hyperpolarizes the cell. So that's the reason why GABA is considered as an inhibitory neurotransmitter. But here, very interestingly, glutamate itself is actually an excitatory neurotransmitter. Okay, so it works via sodium ion channel mediated activation of a nerve cell happens. And one more important point I wanted to tell you is MSG. What is MSG? Monosodium glutarate. Okay, or you all know this no common name for this, that is China salt, okay, or tasting salt, okay. In Chinese restaurants or Chinese foods, you will see presence of this compound, which will give you CNS stimulation upon consumption of that food, and it's not good for our health, okay. That's why usage of MSG is controlled right now, and it is almost banned in food items. Next one is glutamate. By combining with terroate will form folic acid, which is a very important molecule in the monocarbon metabolic reactions, okay. Folic acid will become tetrahydrofolate will become loaded onto it accepts the carbon unit, and then it helps as a monocarbon unit transfer reagent. And glutamic acid is one of the amino acid in the tripeptide glutathione biosynthesis. Glycine, cysteine, and glutamic acid, all these three, they react with each other to get us glutathione, a tripeptide, a very important antioxidant or free radical scavenging molecule we have in our body. So for detailed metabolism or detailed mechanism of biosynthesis, as well as role of glutathione as well as folate, I made separate lectures, so I request you to please see those lectures for getting a comprehensive idea on these two topics, okay. So friends, I hope you understood the concept of utilization of glutamate and glutamine and their interrelation. Further, glutamate is also one of the ingredient for the biosynthesis of histidine. The next very important amino acid we have is arginine. So arginine is, in my view, is almost synonymous with urea cycle, okay. Arginine is a non-essential amino acid and it is glucogenic. In the liver, arginine is hydrolyzed to ornithine and urea, okay. So that urea will be excreted in urine. Ornithine will go back and again participate in urea synthesis like this. See here, this is guanidine unit, okay. This is represented C double bond N, but here I am representing it as like this. But if you see the organic chemistry way of treating this subject, NH2, this is one of the resonance stabilizer structure for guanidine unit. So in this resonance stabilizer form, it gets hydrolyzed over here, so thereby it gives you C double bond O in the place of C double bond N, and NH2 is remaining on this. So this is nothing but ornithine, okay. This ornithine, in one of the anaerobic conditions, removes carbon dioxide via decarboxylation reaction to give us putrescine. So this is an amino compound which gives really bad smell, and this ornithine will further starts participating in the urea cycle. So whenever and wherever hepatic failure happens, so ornithine cannot enter into the cycle again. So this will be forced to go into decarbonylation, so thereby putrescine is formed. So this is one reason why dead tissue smells really bad. Next very important contribution from arginine is nitro oxide formation or nitrogen monoxide formation. NO is a radical ion, so it's a radical. So let's see its significance. Arginine undergoes oxidative reaction, degradation, okay. So this double bond N is oxygenated so that hydroxy arginine is formed. So this upon degradation gives us citrulline, which enters into urea cycle, and also nitro oxide. This particular reaction is a 5-electron oxidation reaction. It is catalyzed by a unique family of enzymes. We call them as nitroxide synthetases or NOS. So here Five very important redox cofactors like NADPH, FAD, FMN, cytochrome, and H4 biopterin. All these participate in this particular biochemical reaction, and we have three isozymes are there in this family. One of them is a very important enzyme in endothelial NOS, which is responsible for vascular smooth muscle relaxation. Vascular smooth muscle relaxation means blood vessels like small capillaries. Okay, blood capillaries. A relaxation is under the control of this one. So nitrous oxide, if it is released, NO, nitrogen oxide, monoxide, if it is released, it relaxes the smooth muscles of capillaries. Okay, so that it improves blood flow. The next one is neuronal NOS. It controls the events on the synapses. Calcium independent events are controlled. The third one is in phagocytes, where it actually initiates, okay, bactericidal chemical biosynthesis. Okay, peroxynitrite, a very powerful oxidative degrading agent, is released in phagocytes, which is meant for killing bacteria by destroying its lipid and protein network in the cell wall. Okay, so primarily cell wall. So this is the way how nitrous oxide is a very important signaling molecule in our body, which is generated from arginine. So in this NO group formation agents, you will see them in cardiac agents in your medicinal chemistry topics, especially nitrovasodilators. Okay, nitrovasodilators like nitroglycerin, and many drugs are there. So these are very powerful vasodilators, which actually upon metabolism they release nitro group, which enhances the capillary smooth muscle diameter, thereby helps in improving blood circulation to cardiac smooth muscle. Okay, so friends, I hope you understood the importance of nitro oxide and the role of arginine in it. Further, arginine is a very important starting molecule which participates in the synthesis of creatine. Okay, what is creatine? Creatine takes up energy from ATP to give creatine phosphate. Okay, so here in arginine, from the guanidine group, this part will be shifted to glycine, so that glycine will become a guanidino compound. This is guanidinoacetic acid. Now this guanidinoacetic acid takes a methyl group from SAM, acetylmethionine, thereby you get the compound creatine. Okay, so now this creatine takes up phosphate group from ATP and it will become creatine phosphate or phosphocreatine. The reason why we are synthesizing phosphocreatine, because ATP that is synthesized, it is very unstable. Because of the stability problem, ATP has less than 30 seconds half-life in cytosol. The moment it comes in contact with water, it gets degraded. There is no other way, because phosphoric acid anhydride bond is very unstable. But here this is a guanidinophosphate group, so in guanidinophosphate group only this is unstable. As I told you, guanidine group can undergo different type of resonance stabilized forms. So in this form only high energy bond will be there, whereas in ATP there is no such possibility is there, so it gets degraded. So this is what gives stability to phosphocreatine. This type of rearrangement is what gives phosphocreatine a lot stability, and here the energy is retained. In phosphocreatine you will have approximately 41 kilojoules of energy will be there. So this is enough for achieving many of the biochemical reactions that happen in your skeletal muscle. So this is the way. Then the phosphocreatine can be hydrolyzed, because by giving away the phosphate group, it becomes creatine. Creatine cyclizes. Okay, it's a slow non-enzymatic degradation reaction. Okay, so this will be cyclized to creatinine. So creatinine is excreted in urine because it is highly polar and 100%, almost 100%, it is excreted in urine. So creatinine and its significance you will see in urine tests in clinical biochemistry, where creatinine clearance test is there, which gives you very clear idea on glomerular filtration rate. Okay, so friends, so this is the way how creatinine is biosynthesized from arginine and glycine, and its biochemical role is as a energy resource for our skeletal muscles. Then let's go ahead on to proline. In case of proline, proline is a non-essential amino acid, as we have seen just now. It can be obtained from glutamic acid. So it is a non-essential amino acid. It is glucogenic and it gives us oxaloacetate. Okay, so this is the way. So what is happening in the beginning? Proline will be dehydrogenated so that you will have a C double bond N formation. Then it will be degraded or hydrolyzed to give us glutamate 5 semialdehyde. So this is what we have seen just a few slides back. Okay, so this imine formation, imines are unstable and imines can be hydrolyzed. So via upon hydrolysis you will have formation of aldehyde group and amino group, which will be oxidized to glutamate. Glutamate will become 2-ketoglutarate. 2-ketoglutarate will enter into will be further degraded to oxaloacetate, so thereby gluconeogenesis will happen. So here very important aspect of proline is formation of 4-hydroxyproline. So in 4-hydroxyproline formation happens exclusively in collagen and is formed by post-translational hydroxylation of prolyl residues in collagen, procollagen polypeptide chains. Similarly to proline, 4-hydroxyproline is degraded to 4-hydroxyglutamate, which is cleaved to pyruvate and glyoxylate. Next amino acid is histidine. Histidine is a non-essential amino acid and it is glucogenic. It gives glutamate and oxaloacetate. Histidine mostly does not undergo transamination reaction. It can be directly deaminated via an elimination type of reaction or otherwise a desaturation reaction. So histidine via histidase enzyme, aminolyase enzyme, is ammonia is removed via elimination reaction. So that's why alpha beta unsaturated carboxylic acid is formed. This is what we call it as urocanic acid. This urocanic acid takes up a water molecule and then 4-imidazolone 5-propionate is formed. So here water is added and then it will be converted to this one. Okay, it is only resonance stabilized structure. Then hydrolysis happen because this is an amide group. So hydrolysis happen. So thereby you get this compound N-formimino-glutamate. So here if you take this entire chain, okay, this is glutamic acid. Okay, so to the nitrogen we have this formimino group, C double bond O. If let's say HC double bond O, if it is like this is like a formyl group. Now if it forms an imine group, this is formimino group. Okay, so that will be hydrolyzed. Here tetrahydrofolate picks up this formimino group so that N-formimino tetrahydrofolate is formed. Okay, so regarding this tetrahydrofolate and single carbon metabolism reactions, I made a separate video, so please see that video to get a clear idea. And this gives us glutamate. Glutamate will be converted to 2-ketoglutarate and that will enter into gluconeogenesis pathway. Further, the histidine upon decarbonylation gives us a very important signaling molecule, that is histamine. Histamine is a biogenic amine stored within the granules of basophils and mast cells. Okay, more than 90% of body stores you will find in basophils and mast cells. Within the synaptosomes of certain CNS neurons also you will find histamine. When released, histamine induces complex physiological and pathological effects. We call them as immunological reactions or allergic conditions. Okay, allergic conditions of the skin and airways. Gastric acid secretion is also under this control. Smooth muscle contractions you can find, especially the bronchoconstriction, and it initiates almost all of a sudden vasodilation, and sometimes it leads to syncope condition, okay, or collapse. Patient will collapse. Histamine exerts its action via at least 4 different histamine receptor subtypes. Okay, and when released, histamine is metabolized by oxidation to imidazoloacetic acid, because this one gets converted to C double bond O, then it will be converted to COOH by the help of monoamino oxidase enzymes. So here in medicinal chemistry you will see a very important class of drugs, that is antihistaminics, where we have diphenhydramine, cetirizine, like drugs will be there, which are useful for us as antihistaminic compounds. So there you will see more details about histamine and its biological effects. So friends, this is the way how histamine play a very critical role in controlling our immunological as well as allergic reactions. They are all meant for our protection only, but when they happen in uncontrollable manner, that creates pathological conditions, and quite often it leads to fatality. Okay, so now let's see the comprehensive picture of the relation between all these amino acids. Now let's start from one end here. So arginine is the initiator for urea production. Okay, so arginine gets degraded to ornithine and urea. Urea is excreted in urine. Ornithine can be formed from glutamate semialdehyde, or ornithine upon degradation gives us glutamate semialdehyde. Glutamate semialdehyde can give us glutamic acid, and from glutamic acid we can get glutamine. This glutamate semialdehyde can undergo ring closure reaction. By using that we can get proline. Okay, so this one. Further, the histidine upon metabolism you will get, because histidine is metabolized via elimination type of reaction, so that urocanate will be obtained. So this will be converted to N-formimino-glutamate. This will load THF with the formimino group, okay, tetrahydrofolate with formimino group, so that it can transfer C double bond N group. Okay, this group can be transferred to other substrates, and in this degradation we get the glutamate. Glutamate ultimately gets metabolized to alpha ketoglutarate via transamination reaction. Here aspartic acid is formed from oxaloacetate. So this 2-ketoglutarate can again come back to glutamic acid, so that is what happens normally, or it will be metabolized. Either it will be metabolized or 2-ketoglutarate will be metabolized. So ultimately they will end up in gluconeogenesis. Okay, so friends, this is the way how ornithine, arginine, glutamine, glutamate, proline, histidine, all these amino acids are related. Their biochemical or catabolic reactions are connected to each other in such a manner that they help each other. So thereby it helps us in maintenance of both energy reserves as well as signaling molecule concentration in our body. Friends, I hope you understood the concept of interrelation between various amino acids and their biochemical pathways. I request you to please let me know if you have any doubts, and if you need any clarifications, please post your concerns in the comment box so that I will be able to address them. I request you to please share this video with your friends, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you will come to know about any new videos that I am making. And I thank you all for your time. See you all again with another very important lecture soon. Thank you.